Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 15th, 2018 Caucus prior to council meeting for the city of Brook Park. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Virgil?
Here.
Orcutt?
Here.
Stem?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Poindexter?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
If everyone would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to item number 3, discussion. Our first item is a resolution authorizing the mayor to participate in the ODOT winter contract 2018-2019 for rock salt and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella per Council President Vecchio.
Chairman.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Chairman. I did a little research on this, and I found that this really does need to be moved rather quickly. We're under a time constraint on this, and this just came about suddenly, so I think we should move this to tonight's council agenda and consider passing it under suspension of the rules.
I'll support that.
Put that in the form of a motion,
Yes,
please.
sir, I would.
And I'll support that. Second.
Motion on the floor to move to tonight's council agenda, properly seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
This will be under letter M2. This will be number 18-2018. Item number 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the sale of plus or minus 3.303 acres of land located at 16400 and 16500 Brook Park Road, permanent parcel numbers 344-30-008 and 344-30-009, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella and Councilman Mancini per Council President Vecchio.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor?
if I may, we have the principals here from the company who wants to build there, and Mr. Ethan Robertson would be happy to address council and answer any questions you may have if you'd like him to take the podium.
Council?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion on the floor to have them address council, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Virgil?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Motion has been approved. Mr. Robertson, if you would like to come to the podium. If you would, state your name and your address for the record.
Good evening, council member. My name is Ethan Robertson, and my address is 18 Old Farm Road. That's Granville, Ohio.
Thank you. Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, Mr. Robinson, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And thanks for your interest in Brook Park. And on that, I'd like to know what brought you, your thought process to bring you to Brook Park.
Sure. So the reason for us looking in the Brook Park area is multifaceted. We have a core business in Mount Vernon, Ohio, just south of here, about an hour and a half, and we opened another retail outlet facility in Columbus, Ohio, just east of the 270 and 70 split on the east side of Columbus. The reason for us coming into the Brook Park area is for basically business growth. Our business is a hub and spoke design where we hub around Mount Vernon, and then we are building out retail sales facilities in order to facilitate our current customer base as well as gain new customers. Columbus was a market that was initially looked at several years ago for us to grow into. It's about a 45-minute drive from our current location in Mount Vernon. The location in which we started was National Truck and Equipment Sales. That's done very well over the past couple of years and has allowed us to look into another market. Very similar to the Columbus market is the Cleveland area, the northeastern Ohio area. We have currently customers in this area, but we are not penetrating as well as we would like. The reason for looking at the Brook Park corridor area is twofold. One, it's to be up in the area, but two, it's to have the visibility off of 480 and 71 there, as well as be on the prestigious Brook Park Road. We have current customers as well as friendly competitors on the road as well, other truck dealers currently in the area, as well as the traffic and visibility of which we feel that will help our business grow in this area.
Okay, very good answer. Now, you see Mount Vernon a little bit away, and I think you make a good point with 480, 71, and obviously very close to Cleveland. That being said, how many jobs are you bringing?
Sure. So initially, for the facility that we're proposing to build on the property, we're looking at in the 10 to 15 employment mark for within the first year, year and a half. The building should be able to be expandable on a single shift into that 20 to 25 over time, if the economy and the sales force allows to do that. So initially, we would take on 3 to 4 salesmen, several office administrators, and then the shop space would be facilitated by mechanics as well to do our mechanical repairs on the truck. So, and the hub and spoke design of which we have for Robertson Truck Group, the main facility at Robertson Truck Sales in Mount Vernon, Ohio, is basically a processing center. So trucks are brought in, they're inventoried, they're tagged, they do a basic detail and cleanup on them, and then any body upfitting associated with what our business is. So a dump body, a flatbed, a wheelbase change, a hydraulics for a wetline kit might be installed in Mount Vernon, and then it would be taken to this facility up here where the major mechanical work would be done to it to get it prepped for the retail sale. And that's what the mechanics part would be. So depending on sales volume, obviously more mechanics would be needed for more sales volume and growth.
Okay, and I have one more question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Did you look anywhere else, and do you have a time frame on your project here that you'd like to start processing in Brook Park?
Sure. So in the area, we've looked at several other properties as well. Some more east of here, 15 to 20 miles east of here off of 480. There was another facility that was located, as well as several on the Brook Park area. What it basically came down to was, in order to build what we need to facilitate our business, the properties that we're looking at, they don't fit our need for what we're doing. They're either too large of a property that it's unmanageable for me, or they're too small. The issue with what we do is that we need 14-foot tall bay doors in order to drive trucks in. And most facilities in the area, they might be a cross dock or they might be a lower sidewall height. I need a minimum of 16-foot sidewall to accommodate a 14-foot tall bay door to be able to get trucks in. And the facilities around didn't offer that. A former property called Cherney's Motor Sales is over east of here, and that property allowed it, but it wasn't for what the cost factor would be for it for my retrofit. I believe that I'm better to build new for what we do. The Columbus model has worked for us. The facility size, the way that it's laid out, that was all built new from the ground up for what we're trying to do. So I believe that is the proper size and space, although this property would be a little bit larger to facilitate more sales in this area due to proximity from our Mount Vernon location. I believe we can actually increase sales volume more so than we did in Columbus due to the area traveled.
Okay, and I thank you. How long you been in Mount Vernon? How long?
So the company was started in 1984 by my father. I came on in 2006 working full-time for the company.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robertson. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate you coming tonight.
you.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, I have just a couple questions. First of all, your Mount Vernon facility, what is your current number of employees down there?
Roughly around 70, just as, about 65 to 70, is that correct? Yes. So currently about 65 to 70 total employees at the Mount Vernon facility right now.
Okay, and I also heard you mention in that part of the conversation that you will also be having some truck sales. Well, from this location that you're
Correct.
proposing now.
Correct. So this is actually, we're a truck sales facility first. So the outside mechanical work does come with truck sales, but our general business model is to sell used chassis with new bodies upfitted on the back of them. So that's kind of our bread and butter. Our core customer is somebody looking for from the cab back. So they're the dump bodies, the flatbeds I spoke of, the hydraulics, the wet lines. We're facilitating that for our customer base. And our customer base maybe could afford new, but for a specific application, they don't necessarily go new, so they'll buy a late model pre-owned. The average year of trucks that we sell would be about 5 to 7 years old. Would be our current inventory on our lot, is what we do. But the new equipment on the back is all brand new. So when I say the body upfitting, we deal with Borock, we deal with Godwin. These are new body manufacturers, as well as a a company out of Canada called NRC Industries, and they're a wrecker company. We have been able to facilitate a deal with them for the state of Ohio to sell NRC wrecker bodies. And in doing that, they would like to see other locations as well. And those would be working with new dealers as well, body upfitting for them out of our Mount Vernon location, but facilitating sales out of this location. So I believe that having the right amount of salesmen in this area to help penetrate it will help obviously grow volume, and then everything will be funneled through this dealership to sell into this market, as well as other markets, you know, as far as with the internet presence. We do sell all over the country, but primarily in this location, I believe there's a huge potential in this market, and that's why we've looked into this area. And I want to step back too. I didn't answer your total question also.
You're
I
fine.
believe I missed the timeline question is what you asked. And the timeline would be as soon as possible, I guess, as far as when we'd like to build. I talked to the builders already, and we are looking at probably, as far as on footers in the ground, barring any engineering type issues between, you know, the engineers with everything working out, would be, you know, hopefully targeted by the end of this year to try to get at least footers in the ground so they can work throughout the winter to be open hopefully in middle part of next year. Is
Great, thank you.
Probably about a 9-month build span.
So my understanding is that most of what will be coming in initially are gonna be cabin chassis, then you're gonna do the upfits.
So it'll be a combination,
Right,
correct?
right. So you'll be working with all the manufacturers, whether it be Sterling, it'd be Ford, anybody.
Yeah, so we buy,
Caucus.
correct, so we buy a lot of parts through new dealers in the area, but we also work well with them because we do a lot of body upfits for Valley Freightliner, for Hans Freightliner, so two locals, I guess, that are right off of Brook Park or just down the street, but, you know, Valley Ford, you know, we work with Joey over at Premier, so we work with a lot of current customers here, but the interesting part is that we are competition, but we're not direct competition because they sell new trucks first, and their model is parts and service, where we sell used chassis, and that is our business. We do parts and service second. So it'll be a retail sales facility working on our own trucks first, and then outside parts and service sales second, and that's how our model has always been.
Do you have a projected sales goal that you want to attain out of this location initially?
Sure. So in our Columbus location for the first year, we sold roughly about 5.5 to 6 million for the first year being open, the first 12-month span for what we're doing. The average sale price of trucks that we sell is roughly right around that $40,000 mark or so. We do also sell small trailers, anywhere from a 5x10 tag-along trailer all the way up to a 53-foot Fontaine trailer as well. We're a distributor for them as well. So, you know, as the market shifts and we see what works and what doesn't work up here, sales volume could be higher. That was with 2 salesmen initially starting out in Columbus. And the way that business was set up was it was a new name, a new location, basically starting from the ground up. National Truck and Equipment Sales didn't exist as of 2 years ago, although Robertson Truck Group and Robertson Truck Sales did exist. It was the first stepping out of the hub-and-spoke model of what we've designed for the business. And being able to build a business up here, our Mount Vernon location will turn into National Truck and Equipment Sales with the parent group of Robertson Truck Group. So we still have our family, it's still a family-owned company, but National Truck and Equipment Sales is the outward-facing function for the retail sales facility. Mount Vernon also houses Ohio Truck Equipment and Equipment Leasing Solutions, which is basically a ground storage container and a trailer container leasing company where we lease out for a lot of storage needs for customers. A lot of landscapers use them for salt in the winter. Storage facilities use them. A lot of Honda component plants in Marysville lease a lot of our storage trailers. And there's about 250 or so of those out on lease right now also. So,
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I'd like to thank you for traveling all the way up here.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
Ethan, one question. Would you be willing in your contract to have, I guess, a lack of a better term, a buyback agreement? Say if after 24 months you're not doing anything there, could the city buy it back from the same price that we sold it to? Would you have any problems with that?
I don't think there'd be any issues with that type of clause. I understand with some concern as far as on somebody trying to purchase a property. I did it in the city of Reynoldsburg as well, purchasing from an individual, not from a city, but working in conjunction with the city. I don't see any problem with the initial buyback clause if we don't develop it. I'm not a developer. I sell trucks for a living. So, you know, our intent is to try to have something on the ground this year. So as far as on initial buyback, at least it'd be a guaranteed sale if I don't do anything on it. But yeah, I don't see any issue with that. Obviously, we'd have to look at the terms, but I don't think that there should be any issue with that. our intent is to build, to sell trucks with new body upfits on them. So, yeah, that's not an issue as long as we work it out.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Robinson, what is your projected annual income, your payroll? What are you looking at?
For this location,
Yeah.
up in Brook Park, we're probably looking.
For this year one?
I'm sorry, can I call Justin Smith up here? He's our chief operating officer.
Justin, if you would just give your name and address also.
Yes. Justin Smith, 443 Glentel Drive, Granville, Ohio.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, what was your question
So
again? I
what
apologize.
is your projected income, your payroll for this first year?
First year, are you talking income as in revenue or payroll going out
Payroll.
labor?
Payroll.
For this particular location, well, it would be variable depending upon sales, but looking back at what we did in Columbus, Ohio, first year, extracting out allocations for admin costs that were allocated, Ethan and I, being an integral part of running the business, I would anticipate probably if we did $6 million in sales, $350,000.
You said you have 10 to 15 projected employees.
No, that's with just sales.
I'm looking at payroll.
Oh, you're looking at total payroll, 10% of our total revenue. So $600,000 on a $6 million baseline.
Okay, and what is your average pay per employee? You got 10 to 15 employees. What are you averaging, 35,000, 40,000?
Well,
employee.
based on that, it would probably be around 60, top heavy with sales.
Sales would be driving, so a salesman gets paid on a matrix of different things, but the average mechanic in our Columbus location's making around $20 an hour. Brook Park, obviously, I think would be a little bit higher pay scale for mechanical wise. Office admin, I would assume are gonna be in that $15 to $18 range. And if you're looking at salesmen, our salesmen are anywhere from 60 to 180,000 on average is what salesmen would be making depending upon sales. Some could go over that, but that would be an average. New salesmen probably in that $60 to $80,000 mark. Tenured sales may be making in that 180 or so and above. So
You're looking at essentially percent of sales wise, about 10% of your top line revenue could be attributed to payroll. That's conservative. And then how that's divvied out, it's top heavy with sales professionals being at the top end, and then any office admin towards the bottom end of that scale, and your mechanical manager and mechanics kind of flushed in the middle there. But looking at our financial and historical financials for that operation in Columbus, you're looking at about 10% of that labor being attributed towards the top line, percent of sales wise.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps. I apologize in answering the first part of the question.
Right now.
Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on the amount of employees. Now, originally, when we started talking about this project, there was going to be 10 to 15 new employees, and now we're comparing this operation to an operation that exists in Columbus. Are we comparing apples to apples, and what's the number of employees that you have in Columbus?
I can answer that. Currently in Columbus now, we have 9 employees. Now, one thing to take in consideration, I think is extremely important, is that the influence that Ethan and I have on a day-to-day basis in Columbus, we're going to have to overcompensate here in this market. And why I say that is the locale in which we live compared to Mount Vernon and Columbus is a 30-minute transportation every day, regardless of which location we go to. So our flexibility and ability to be visible at those locations is much more feasible than here in Cleveland. So we're going to have to hire additional staff here to compensate for that, talented staff that has experience in the marketplace. And we've already started the direct recruiting process within this area.
yeah, not to mention too, we do have facilitation help from Mount Vernon with that location. If we need to transfer mechanics down, we will transfer them down on a case-by-case basis as far as from troubleshooting, any additional help. So we do have the capability of bringing mechanics down to Columbus and work on a as-needed basis, which does help with that. But in this location, farther away, we will require more mechanics on staff than we would in Columbus.
But did you start with 9 and stay there, or did you start higher and shrink to 9?
So we started with 7 initially, and we just took 2 more on, and we're just hiring another one as well. So, and that's in about about 2-year span, a little under 2 years or so, bring them on. So the proximity wise means that we don't have to staff as heavy, but the location of where we are up to here, it's about twice the drive at least. So about an hour and a half, hour 45 from Mount Vernon to this location. So it will require more mechanics on staff as well because of the it's not as feasible to transfer mechanics from one location to another.
I think one important note to consider as well is in Columbus, we ran relatively lean. And one of the reasons why is to generate working capital to reinvest, which has put us in position to do this and be here today. Could we afford? Absolutely. And we've done some things, being close in proximity between Columbus and Mount Vernon. We've put ourselves in position where we've been able to consolidate some resources from an admin perspective that unfortunately we wouldn't be able to accomplish here in Brook Park. We would have to hire those positions, where in Columbus we're afforded the opportunity to have much more flexibility because of the locale.
Does your location outside of the greater Cleveland area, what size parcel are you on? Are you on 3 to 5 acres or 8, 10 acres?
So in Columbus, we're on 4.35 acres with about 2.3 of asphalt. So comparable size lot. The way that our property borders Home Depot on one side and residential on the other lends to a lot of buffering zones with screening for that particular spot. In Mount Vernon, we have 15 acres, hard packed, about 48,000 square foot of facility under roof, with the additional about 20 acres to expand onto.
With the 15-acre parcel, you certainly have enough acreage for growth potential, but how do you feel about the growth potential on a 2.5-acre parcel?
Sure. So once again, for the National Truck and Equipment Sales for the hub and spoke, this would be the spoke part of the retail sales. So we traditionally keep in Columbus about 40 to 60 trucks on hand at all times for the retail sale. Mount Vernon will house about 150 as they're processing. The turnover rate in Columbus is considerably faster than it is in Mount Vernon due to the fact that they're having pre-built, ready trucks going onto the lot with the mechanical work. It's easier to sell a truck. Cosmetically has been gone through the paint shop, it's been gone through the detail process, it has the body up on it. We can sell past the mechanical part because the mechanics are on staff to try to turn the trucks faster. So with the hub and spoke, the major facilitation is in Mount Vernon. That's the slowest part. That's the slow wheel grinding. Once it gets to the retail sales facility, it's considerably faster, so turnover rate's quicker, so you don't need to house as many trucks. I don't want to be super top heavy in one location where transportation becomes an issue. So being able to hub in Mount Vernon and spoke out is the model of which we want to see because it turns over, we have money turn quicker, being able to invest back in more inventory.
And one last question. So in other words, the Columbus operation would feed the Brook Park operation to a degree.
The Mount Vernon location would feed the
Mount
Brook Park
Vernon, okay.
operation due to the proximity where it is. Now, we do have truck transfer that would transfer back and forth. We have 5 drivers on staff that run trucks between locations as well as bringing trucks in from out of state as well. So it could be feasibly transferred back and forth, but it would primarily be going through Mount Vernon. That's where the local buying comes in. That's where everything gets consolidated, and then it would get divvied out to the location of which would be buying it, and they're buying off their own line of credit as well. So
Just to follow up, and this will be my last question, I promise.
you're okay.
The question that the mayor brought forward is something that we had discussed earlier, not publicly, but we had some discussions on the first right of refusal. And the mayor, I think, mentioned 2 years. Is there any option available to make that, close that window down and also include the fact that you can't sell it if you don't develop it, will give us the right to take it back at the actual price that you purchased it at. But 2 years, I think, is way too long to even be considered. No, I would never want to wait 2 years. I'm not even sure I even want to sell it, to be honest with you. But you'd also have to, in my opinion, again, I'm not sure I'm going to support this, but I really would like to see that you would also not sell it to someone else if you changed your mind or found somebody else that would say, hey, we'll do that for you, and we'll bring in ABC Trucking, and they'll take it over. So the first right of refusal will then automatically revert back to the city of Brook Park. Would you have a problem with that?
I think we need to discuss that a little bit further as far as my legal counsel. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but our main intent, I can assure you, is not to flip a property. That's not our business goal. Our business goal is to sell trucks and equipment. I'm not a real estate broker. I don't dabble in real estate. It's my first major purchase besides my home was the property in Columbus in order to develop it. So as far as on a buyback, if we didn't build on it, yes, I would be interested in doing that. Like I said earlier, if we didn't fulfill our end of the bargain, why shouldn't you guys fulfill yours as far as on buying it back? As far as on building a property and then you guys having first right of refusal to buy it back after the fact of being built, I would have a little issue as far as on seeing exactly how that would look. For the fact that we'd be investing money in it, would it be upon an appraised value? How would that work? Would it be, I understand with a conditional use, as what Columbus gave us was a conditional use. If we were to ever sell our property, it would have to be voted through city council to make sure that it would be for the use of what the new prospective tenant would be buying. And I understand that. I guess as far as on investing $2 million into a property and 5 years down the road, something happens, let's say a health issue or whatever, and I have to sell the property to say, we have to sell it back to you first. I guess I have just a question with that. I just like to see how that looks, I guess. I can't predict the future, but I can tell you in the present, we're looking to build a facility on here to grow national trucking equipment sales. So I'd be open to discuss anything. I just have to see it. And like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I would like to talk to.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Mr. Robertson. Let's focus on the building for a second. That we saw a picture in the original packet, and it was like a computer model, and we went on the website and looked at the facility that was there. Is that what you're going to build here? Is that a similar type building?
Correct. So the same architecture as what was in Columbus is proposed. Obviously, you guys have probably different building codes than what we do down in the Reynoldsburg area. But yes, the same basic structure. The entryway would be changing. It's a side entrance now. It would be a front entrance because of the way that it's fitting on the lot itself. Entering off of Brook Park would be the main office facade. It would be essentially the frontward facing part to Brook Park as the front door. As you come on, the mechanical spots would be towards the back facing the 480 section of the lot itself, and then sales lot would be behind that. So yes, a very similar structure. This structure would be proposed as far as on the lengthwise, an additional bay depth-wise and length, so about 22 feet longer and possibly up to 15 feet wider. It wouldn't be wider than the office area itself, but yes, the same basic architecture would apply if that would be okay with you guys. That's kind of all of the engineering's done for that particular type of building.
Now, is that style of building, is that a pre-engineered building, or?
So Kirby Building Structures pre-engineered that building, correct? It is a steel building, all steel building. The one in Columbus had fire suppression in it. But yes, an all steel building, clear span ceilings. That one in Columbus, the pictures that you saw were a 22-foot sidewall on one side and 24 with a single pitch roof on that. And that was designed specifically for that site.
And how much open floor space is that?
So the shop space is, the whole building itself currently is right around 80, trying to think off the top of my head, just shy of 9,000 square foot, including offices. So this new building would be, if we proposed it 80 feet wide and an additional 22 feet long, I'd have to do the math on that, but we're probably in that 12,000 square feet or so, give or take.
And
Rough
how many
numbers.
truck bays do you expect to have there?
So we would have one wash bay, and then the other bays, the proposed additional bay on there would actually be a half bay. So we're gonna have 1, 2, 3 drive-through bays. A wash bay would be a fourth drive-through bay. And then we would have an additional 1 bay, and I wanna call that a half dead bay. That would be more for parts, deliveries, bringing in and out, as well as some equipment storage. Something we're lacking in Columbus is the ability to store the forklifts and extra tires and everything inside. I don't like exterior storage. I don't know, the photos, we're very particular on exterior appearances. What we do have now is one of our leasing storage containers, a new one-way container sitting out back with everything housed inside of it that can't fit in the building. So that would be the additional width and length that we would need. But the facility itself would be the basic structure that you see there.
And one last question. If this goes through and approved, and you like the site, like the plans you're going to build on it, would you consider using local labor to build your facility, or
Yes.
do you have a preferred contractor?
So who we use currently is a gentleman named Robert Miller, and he has Ohio Dutch Construction. He is who works with Kirby Building Systems as far as on the building process. He general contracts the build of the building. In Columbus, he did use local labor in Columbus. He's not from the area, so he tries to contract as many people in the local area as possible, because they know the lay of the land. They're familiar with the building inspectors. They're able to get things done. I don't personally have any ties to I guess, preferences to who's being used. So yeah, of course, that's who he is, and if he's instructed to use people in the general vicinity, he'll seek out, obviously it'll go through a bid process, but he'll seek out local people, especially with cost as one of the determining factors of how much you can spend on a building. Somebody being local, being to mitigate travel time definitely helps out a great deal as far as on trying to control costs. So I have no problem with that.
Well, I know Brook Park is full of tradesmen and women, and we'd be more than capable to build the building for you, so.
Sure, yeah. I would like to use Robert Miller, though, for the Kirby Building Systems part, but as far as on the other, all the GCs, as far as on the electrical, the concrete, of course, it's out of our area, and it's quite frankly out of my specialty as well, so, yeah, I
That's all
would
I have.
enjoy that.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Anyone else? Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming here. It was a great presentation. A quick question for you, and I know you touched on it briefly, was, what is your plan if we were to pass this today? What would be your plan to have this facility up? How long would it take?
So, in speaking with my builder, as far as the timeline goes, the building's, it's pre-engineered. We've already engineered it for another facility. So being able to make a few tweaks and modifications, I would guess it's gonna be probably 4 to 6 weeks to get the basic building plan. As far as on the timeline to get it up and erected, I'd like to see it done as quickly as possible, honestly. As far as working with local building inspectors and being able to go through the whole process, I'd like to sit down with the building inspectors and who would all be a part of it, almost do a round table. That's what I ended up doing in Columbus, be able to get everybody on board so we're all in front of the same plans and being able to coordinate that, because what we found out in Columbus was we had issues with multiple building inspectors on the job and different hands trying to tell us to do different things, and it actually prolonged the building process. It took me roughly 2.5 years from the start of the initial purchase to going through city council to actually be up and operational. And in working with the city of Reynoldsburg, they realized it was too long. There was too many outside influences. So working with building inspectors, I believe, is key in order to get the project done. So as quickly as possible, I guess. But I would like to see foundations at least in the ground by the end of this year so they can work throughout the winter in order to build it. If we get held up too long on the planning process and the I guess the paperwork, they won't be able to put footers in, depending on the weather, right, until possibly the early part of the spring of next year. So you have to hit that window. If the ground freezes and we can't get piers in, it makes it a lot harder to work without being able to have a stable structure underneath, so.
Part of your plan is that to remove the existing asphalt that's there and go brand new with everything?
So I like to use as much of the current lot as economically feasible, I'll put it that way. So on the eastern part of the lot, that asphalt is in fairly decent shape for what it is. It's actually the thickness of that asphalt for, I believe, the previous use was considerably thicker than most asphalt is for what we normally find on other properties. So if anything, I'd like to try to reuse a part of it that's good. If we have to top cap it, we will. But there are areas that are very broken up and dilapidated. Those will have to be replaced. We'll have probably 25-foot aprons off the side of the buildings in concrete, and then the rest of that would be in asphalt. So as much as I could retain of the current building to, one, help land disturbance, two, help the build process without keeping to over dig and churning up a lot of mud to go on the street, but three, for cost, I'd like to use what we have and then being able to expand upon that. So I can't guarantee we're top capping everything on there, but if we have to do certain areas, obviously the disturbed areas we will, and the other areas might be, like in our Columbus location, we had asphalt crews come out there and they helped resurface a lot of that, seal it up, and then we actually did a full sealer on top of that as well, to help to keep cost under control. We're not I'm I guess a semi decent sized small business, but by no means are we a CarMax of the world where we have flush money everywhere. So we have to spend it where we can, and I believe investing in the building and what makes us money is the primary goal. The ground underneath it has to be solid, but to a degree, I don't want broken up asphalt if that was your question, but I do want a presentable lot as far as that goes, something to maintain as well, especially for the snow and ice up here in this area, so something that can be plowed easily.
Great, and then one last question. It's good to see a company that's 35-plus years, that's Ohio-based, that's growing. You talked about the hub and spoke. Your hub being Mount Vernon and one of your spokes is Columbus. Is that your only spoke at this point?
Correct, at this point,
Okay.
this would be the second.
This will
in
be
that
number
design.
two. Is there any future plans with you regionalizing your company?
So as far as on the long-term plan, we take it day by day, but you always have a vision, right? We believe the Mount Vernon facility in its current state can house up to four, I guess, spokes, or 4 retail facilities. It would be a better term to put it at. The retail facility, they're driving a lot of the revenue stream for the companies on these retail sales, bringing the money back in to reinvest in the trucks and equipment. So, are there any other plans? Yes, there are plans to continue to grow the company, with the National Truck and Equipment Sales being the flagship brand of what it is, but within that proximity. So, another location from Mount Vernon, you know, in an hour and a half to 2 hour window away. Something would be probably east, something would be probably south of Columbus, or in that Dayton, Cincinnati area. But it's pretty much in the Ohio area is where we're focusing, because everything focuses around Mount Vernon. But the major sales organization, could I explain kind of a few words of how our business works, I guess? So by the hub of Mount Vernon, that's where a lot of the heavy lifting goes on as far as the body outfitting, what I spoke about earlier. But they have no salesmen. So Ohio Truck Equipment has 0 salesmen. So the Equipment Leasing Solutions hires 0 salesmen. National Truck and Equipment Sales, Robertson Truck Sales, and the location up here, they have, the 2 locations right now have 8 salesmen currently actively working, with 2 other salesmen, myself and my father as well. They're the ones that generate sales. So all sales get brought through those locations. Tax revenue stream goes through. So everything gets brought in through the sales locations, because they're able to sell for the other businesses as well. So the body upfit with the truck, with the new trailer behind it, we're bringing those through the retail sales facilities. They're processing all of that. We're ordering through Mount Vernon, delivering out through those facilities, if that kind of makes sense. So the retail sales facility, that's really the key to our business. Being in Mount Vernon, you can only have so much growth potential. You pump a lot of advertising out. You pump a lot of money expenditures out trying to get customers. But being a brick and mortar in a highly sought after market, as well with the growth potential of this area and the population, that's what we're after. We need a brick and mortar, a strong brick and mortar, to have salesmen to bring customers back to sell them equipment. So that's the general goal of what we're after for the 5 to 10 year plan, is to possibly have 1 more location on staff. And Mount Vernon would be a National Truck and Equipment Sales. That would be we couldn't expand possibly anymore without adding more infrastructure in the Mount Vernon area as well.
Right, okay. I think you definitely get a lot of marketing being up there in 480, and then obviously you've done your homework where Brook Park is at the center hub of transportation here, and I think that would be extremely helpful for your business. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Salvatore.
Just one last question. I was just reading over the agreement real quickly here, and actually, we're out of time. Are you willing to extend this in the event that there's no decision made? According to the agreement, you've already withdrawn your letter of intent.
I think there was an additional letter of intent to add another 30 days, I believe. Now, if that has expired for the additional, I would extend that again as well.
Yeah, I don't have it in my packet. Does anybody else have it?
I believe David Sternberg, we did offer an additional, because of this timeline of where it was, there should have been an additional 30 days, I believe. If not, I have no problem signing that, yes. I understand it's a big decision for you as well as for us, so any time needed is
So it's safe to assume, at least verbally anyway, that the extension is through June 3rd of 2018?
whatever you need, honestly, within reason. Yeah, it's not if you don't say yes tonight, we're walking. No, the intent is to build on this site, if you guys will allow that, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, gentlemen? Seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Counsel? Mr. Mancini?
I'll make a motion to put on tonight's council agenda.
I'll support.
There's a motion on the floor to move this to tonight's council agenda, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
No.
Stem,
No.
Orcutt,
No.
Bergio,
No.
Scott,
No.
Motion fails 2-5.
Motion placed in committee?
Support.
Motion to place in committee, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Motion is approved. This will be placed in the Finance Committee. Moving on to item 3, an ordinance enacting Chapter 1122 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Short-Term Leases, introduced by Councilman Mancini, per Council President Vecchio.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
motion to place on the next council agenda, not tonight, but the next council agenda.
I'll support that if we can go to a council meeting.
June 5th?
So the motion would be motion on the floor to place on the next council agenda, which would be June 5th, properly supported.
Thank you.
Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion is approved. This will show on the June 5th council agenda.
We don't need numbers right now.
Moving on to item number 4, an ordinance authorizing the consulting engineer to prepare plans and specifications and the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the city of Brook Park, contracts 1802, 1803, and 1804, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella, per Council President Vecchio. Mr. Poindexter.
Motion to place on tonight's council agenda.
Motion to place on tonight's council agenda. Dies for a lack of support. Discussion, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, can we go to the engineer and get his take on this, please?
Sure. Mr. Piatek.
Thank you, Mayor. On attachment A, if everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at this, we've allocated 2 streets under contract 1802 to be resurfaced, Carol and Christine, at a total of $353,000. One street to have full-depth concrete joint repairs, which would be Brookhaven at $145,000. And then one crack seal project, that'd be contract 1804, for a total of $160,000 in crack fill to be used in streets within wards 2 and 3. That would bring the total for those 3 contracts at $743,400, and then an allocation of $763,000 and some change to be budgeted and allocated towards the 3 projects that were for next year: the Smith Road resurfacing, the Holland Road, and then the Sheldon Road. So those are the projects that we're talking about going to construction this year. Those contract 1802, 1803, and 1804. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piatek. Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the mayor. Mayor, I know money's tight, and obviously we just went through a budget process. Mr. Single, you know, he had said that from the beginning, you had said that from the beginning. There's no doubt about it. As we are out there, whatever, in our wards, at our community events, the thing that comes up the most is the streets. The thing I'm looking at here, the one thing, I might not always agree with my colleagues, but I know they worked hard for that street program. And there was parts of that I didn't probably even agree with, and I thought it did go out a little too long, but they did work hard. They did their due diligence. And I guess I could say when we picked up our packets, we seen this. Now, I could be upset with the fact that Ward 2, there's only $60,000, but I'm not selfish. I know I just had 3 streets done last year. Some of the others weren't as fortunate. And I had a call, I actually had it through the city email today, a lady on Sylvia back behind us, back between Evanston and Holland, that's, you know, chuck holes all over, and with the weather we're having, the chuck holes are coming out. And I guess I could say that like, I was just a little caught off guard when we got this, one of my colleagues had caught me, and he was very, very caught off guard. And, you know, and I know Ed has a great assessments on the streets, and he does have the right ones up on top. We got a lot of them. Let's be honest, we got a lot of streets that need redone. So I guess I kind of twofold here. Number one, what is our plan with the streets? I mean, I know it's a simple question, and it's a question just been beat up and smacked back and forth across this dais for the past, probably since when we took office January 1st. And the other thing is, how did this get from when we had finished off the capital budget process to where this is now? And Mayor, I know you're in a tough spot too. This isn't to beat you up, anything like that, but, and I know Ed's has a hard time. Randy's phone probably rings off the hook with the streets going on, but that's my two questions, more or less. How did this get here, and what's our plan for the streets? Because I believe at some place we have to have something. So I have, Mr. Chairman. It's okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. In response to your question, Jim, you know, going through the appropriations, this and that, it appeared to me, and I'll ask the finance director to correct me if I'm wrong, that we wanted a 2018, 2019 street program. And that's what we put together. And if I didn't hear that correctly, please tell me, but that's what this is, because we have the big streets coming in, and you're right, we've inherited a mess, but we slowly got to fix it, and council said they didn't want to go in too far next year into reserves or in debt to fix those three major streets we're going to do, Sheldon, Smith, and Holland. So if I could, I'd like to defer to the finance director to get his input, but that was my understanding for the 2018, 2019 street program.
Mr. Single, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we went through the appropriation process for the capital improvements that we were looking at from 2018, 2019 roads program. Allocate some monies in 2018 this year, and then some monies in 2019. And I'll reiterate that next year's funding for the roads program, based on the engineer's estimate, is $2.3 million. The program that's proposed tonight would allocate roughly $500,000 to that $2.3 million, which would reduce the commitment next year to be $1.8 million. So I guess the question to council is, you know, next year, how much are you willing to borrow for roads? Because we will be borrowing some money, or we will be spending reserves to generate enough income to pay for the roads that are committed next year, being Smith, Holland, and Sheldon. So we're trying to look at this program 2 years out, this year, and next year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Single. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, from the very beginning, I think that at least it was my intention was to find more money in the budget that we could move into the roads program. And during that process, we decided that to start putting a little bit of money aside for the 2019 roads program, which we talked about in 2017. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Single, but we've been talking about the 2019 going back over a year ago. So the whole idea was to put some money aside, but not to lose sight of the fact that we do want to do some roads in 2018. And I personally don't think we're totally finished finding some additional monies here in 2018 for 2019, as soon as we get a couple of questions answered from the finance director about that Fund 250. And we've talked about it before many, many times in the past, and even going back several years, that the ward guys would get together and try to hash out what streets are projects that they like to see, and they would sit down with the engineer and try to work things out, and then the large guys would get involved and try to make it seem very fair. This particular roads program, obviously it came in a little light, and we anticipated that. We were lucky enough to be able to pump it up a little bit, and But we've seen three different scenarios of different streets. We had one scenario of them streets, the very original scenario, then the following week, we had a street taken out. I think it was Stonecrest, and then Hardin added in, and now we're looking at an altogether different format and different streets altogether. You know, I personally, as one councilman has been around a while, and as one councilman who was certainly did help lead the charge and work with council to try to get more money for the roads, because it's a very sensitive issue. It's very important and very near and dear to the hearts of the people of this community. I think the ward guys should come out forward and start telling us what street has to be done. But what were the commitments that were made during campaigns? I know people walked on streets and said, yeah, we're going to take care of this street. Boy, we've been looking at this for a long time. Well, I think those streets should be given some consideration. I think we should move quickly, but I think we should move very smart. And I think we should get the roads done that need to be done. And the councilman should have some input on which roads those are, and then we should fall within the budget with not losing sight of the fact that some of this money is going to stay back in the fund for 2019. And as far as deciding about how much or how we're going to do this next year, how we're going to borrow money, or what are we going to do, let's hope that we're not faced with that. But when the time comes, we'll deal with it. But I'd like to move forward on this roads program, but I'd like to move forward together. I would like the administration and this council to come to an agreement and say what roads should be done. Let's get them done within a certain number, and let's move forward and get the engineer out there getting these projects out to bid so that we can all complete this, finalize this part of our budget. And having said all that, Mr. Chairman, I'll relinquish the floor to one of my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. I agree with Councilman Salvador. We went through a long capital budget process. We did our due diligence. It was probably 6 weeks. I was under the impression we would have more dialogue with the discussion of which streets were going to be selected as a council as a whole. I understand the obstacles we're facing in 2019. I brought up a couple weeks ago cost-saving idea of possibly putting more money into a separate cost center of any project that went under budget or bid. And I think we should still look into that. I think that's a big part of the answer going forward, is so we don't have to borrow more money than is absolutely necessary. But I would like to have more dialogue with the road project. I mean, I go out and I talk to the residents weekly, and there's streets that Independence Court over at Liberty Bell. There's a lot of angry people over there. The roadway there is not in good condition. I think we should give some thought there, and I'm sure everybody here in the ward and at large has their own streets they'd like to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Mr. Burgio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would like to hear from some of the ward councilmen about some of the streets that they know in particular that really need help. I think that in Ward 3, there's a couple of streets that were mentioned that are very bad, in every ward also, I'm sure. But I'd like to hear from the councilman to see what the needs are that are the greatest, and give them some consideration in each ward, and come across something that's fair for everybody. So those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Burgio. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Like Mr. Stem said, we spent many hours trying to figure out how to increase the road repair program for this year. We picked up about $300,000. I looked at this and I was kind of like floored. I'm thinking, man, we're spending more than half of it for next year. I really thought we were trying to work forward into getting more roads this year, but you look at this and more than half of it's going into next year's road program. I understand we have a bill looking in our face, but that's next year. Am I somebody who only looks at the end of my nose and not down the pike? No, I do know we got some issues for next year, but I was, when I saw this, I was a little bit floored. I know we talked 2018, 2019 program, but I didn't think we talked almost 60%, 55% for 2019. Like Jimmy said, walking the streets, man, I'm getting phone calls right and left, and this comes out, I'm going to get deluged by one street. They're going to tear me apart. I think we should look at this a little bit deeper. We should have concerns about next year, but we still have to take care of this year. Basically, that's all I got. Like I said, I was just a little floored when I looked at this. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Gentlemen, if I may weigh in on this real quick for everybody, I think that in hearing everybody go around, that starting with Mr. Salvatore, you guys would like to work together looking at each one of your wards. My suggestion to council as a whole is to take the proactive approach and maybe put your list together and call for a meeting or put it on the agenda so that you guys can discuss out of each of your wards. I mean, what I'm seeing right now is the council's taking a reactive approach to what's being brought forward to them instead of taking the proactive approach and bringing it forth yourselves.
Agree. Eddie wanted to go.
Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think we all worked very hard on this program because the money was so tight. That's no lie there. And I just want everybody to know my intentions, and I know that I've said it 100 times, but Hummel Road, from the railroad tracks to Fry Road, is something that you can't drive on, and many people use that in Ward 3. And also Wangler Road, I think we've all heard about that for many meetings now, because I've mentioned that a few times, and I think we've even had people come to the microphone. My intentions during this whole process were to do things, to find out where we can still keep every department efficient, bring in some more money for the roads, and we do need to take care and look at the 2019 program. I don't think that we're off by much here. I think this is close, but I think that we can hash this out within a week. I think this can be knocked out, and we can get those streets over to the city engineer. Should be pretty simple, and get moving. So I just wanted to say that I thought that was the intent from the beginning, that we were going to find some more money, come to the middle, and then execute those roads. So that's just the thought process that I had on the whole thing, and I think we can do this within 7 days, hopefully. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Ed Piatek, our engineer. Ed, if we, any way we go on this, and I know time's running short, it's May 15th. A lot of these contractors are already putting their bids in, or they're already out doing some major work. And if they're not, they'll be starting real soon, provided the weather. But what is like our deadline? I mean, I'm not saying if we waited too long, but what are we looking at? I know I asked this maybe 3 weeks ago, but I mean, even if we just went with this, and I would imagine like that 60s for just crack sealing and stuff. How late to the ball game are we in on this?
I mean, the crack seal is typically, just because you mentioned that one, crack seal is typically a late fall project anyway, because you want the temperatures to drop a little bit to get those cracks to open up. So that one there, we're good. The asphalt and the concrete one, if we were to move forward with what we have in front of us, you're looking at a fall projects, fall construction season right now. So, obviously the longer we delay, in getting things approved, then, it just puts us further back. How much more time do we have? I don't know for certain, but I think the quicker we can move and come up with something, the better off.
Right, and I'm not foolhardy enough not to know that them 3 projects I'm looking at right now for 2019 are big. I mean, one of the things I hear a lot, and I'm sure our recreation director, Mark Elliott, hears, is over there at on Holland Road. But again, that'll be coincide with the school project, but that would be a big lift right there. But I mean, again, and I agree with the council president, I think we got to be a little more, instead of a little reactive here, we got to be proactive, and I believe that maybe it some way involves the community too. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Anyone else? Seeing no one else need an action on this, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
if everybody's available, we could, is anybody interested in calling a meeting for Friday for the completion of this roads program? You have a caucus and a council meeting immediately following and pass it that same evening? That give the ward guys enough time to,
All my streets are bad, but I know which ones. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
if I
I'm
may,
ready.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
I thought with the mayor,
If I may, we
administration.
do know what we're dealing with as far as a budget. We do know what's approved. We do know that a certain percentage is going to be held back for 2019. So I think everybody can take a moment and look at the report. And if it falls within the guidelines of the budget that we've already passed, then bring it forward, and then let's get this show on the road.
If I may,
You may.
through the chair to the mayor, I'd like to know what you think on this. I mean, is Friday good? Is it too soon, too late, or you don't agree, or?
Council, that's strictly up to you.
Well, gentlemen, I'll weigh in. I don't know that it's going to matter Friday or Tuesday in that regard. I don't think that those 2 business days are going to make a difference. To have to call a special meeting for it, but again, that's up to you. 3 members can do so.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to suggest to this council, we move now, as soon as possible.
Mr. Poindexter?
Oh, thank you, Council President. I just want to ask a question to council in general. What amount would you feel comfortable with carrying forward to next year? That would be a starting point, because then we can figure out what you want to save for next year. Then we can divvy up the remainder, and that way we're not picking streets that are going to cost $300,000 each. Let's kind of get a working figure, and then that way you're comfortable with carrying over to next year, and then we'll go from there.
Mr. Orcutt?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think that's a good question. I think that's something that the ward guys, that we could get together and talk about that together briefly before we come up with that definite number. But I am in support of putting more funds towards 2019 than what we originally had.
Go for Friday, I don't care.
I'm sorry, Mr. Scott?
Friday or Tuesday?
Do Friday, I don't care.
If we do Friday, can we do like 8 o'clock, because I got to work late Friday?
Well, first of all, council, you can handle that by a second motion, but right now, I mean, if right now I need an action on this piece. So we're currently on number 4 right now. So I need an action as to what you're gonna do.
Place it in committee.
Support.
There's a motion to place in committee, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini.
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. I will place this in the finance committee.
No, we're on service.
Or, I'm sorry, service
Streets.
committee. Service committee, I'm sorry, streets.
And that's the same thing with the next
Yep.
one.
All right, moving,
Companion.
moving on to number 5. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to hire inspectors for Brook Park contracts 1802, 1803, and 1804, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella per Council President Vecchio. This one piggybacks the last one, gentlemen.
Motion placed in committee.
Support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported. Discussion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. This will also be placed in the service committee. Moving on to item number 6, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with City of Strongsville to establish a consolidated communications center in the City of Strongsville and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
motion to place on tonight's council agenda.
Support.
There's a motion to place on tonight's council agenda, vehemently supported. Discussion? Michelle, please call the roll.
Do it. We're all set.
Have your pick.
Seconded by council.
Council of the whole.
Salvatore,
Yes, and the second was by committee.
I was still trying to catch my breath. I didn't.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
All right, motion is approved. This will be under letter M3. 11,023-2018 will be the number for this ordinance. All right, that completes discussion, gentlemen.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion to adjourn, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Stem, I'm sorry, Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. The caucus meeting is adjourned at 8:07.
Let's move on.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for the city of Brook Park for May 15th, 2018. Michelle, please call the roll, members.
Scott,
Here.
Bergio,
Here.
Orcutt,
Here.
Stem,
Here.
Mancini,
Here.
Poindexter,
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
Everyone would please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag.
Moving on to letter C, approval of minutes of preceding meetings. We have one, which is a special caucus meeting held on April 5th, 2018.
Motion to approve those special council meeting.
Jim.
Mr. Scott,
Must be a typo I missed.
There's two of them.
page 18 and
Page
20.
18 and page 20. We got Mayor Coyne for one of them. Page 18, I don't know if that should be Mayor Coyne or not. What should it be, sir? And then we got on page 20, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Eighth paragraph down, we got a 70-20 split. We're losing 10% somewhere.
That should read 70-30.
70-30. Those are just typos, right?
Two typos.
Typos.
All right, so two typos that will be handled and amended.
Motion to support the special caucus meeting April 5th.
Support.
Motion to approve the special caucus meeting held on April 5th, 2018 minutes as amended, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Moving on to letter D, reports of standing committees, aviation and environmental. Councilman Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Aviation Environmental Committee has nothing new on the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Councilman Scott.
Finance Committee has nothing on the agenda tonight, but the Board of Controls met tonight, and there were 29 items that were approved. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Legislative Committee, Councilman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislative Committee has one resolution on first reading and one on ordinance on the second reading, and that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Parks and Recreation Committee, Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rec Commission hasn't met since my last report, but I'm sure Director Elliott will be giving us an update on the building. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Planning Committee, Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had 3 items that came before the Planning Commission on Monday, May 7th. The first was a request for aesthetic approval to construct a front porch, which was unanimously approved. The second item was request for aesthetic approval, project approval to construct a new billboard, 4985 West 150th. That was approved also. And the third item was request project approval to construct and a conditional use permit to operate a multi-tenant retail building, which was denied. That's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergio. Safety Committee, Councilman Stum.
Thank you, Council President. 2 things. The Town Hall meeting is Thursday, May 17th. It's presented through the Brook Park Neighborhood Watch. It's mental health and addiction. They'll have clinical speakers, Judge Nancy Russo, and the Brook Park Police Department. Speaking on that, this week is National Police Week. So if you have an opportunity to thank a police officer for the support and sacrifice they do, I encourage you to do so. And I'd like to thank Chief Foster and the Brook Park Police for everything they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Stum. Service Committee, Councilman Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a reminder for bulk pickup, anybody that needs that service needs to call Robin White by Friday before, which would be the second Monday of the month, before noon. We had a little bit of an issue with that, so I just want to remind everybody that they have to call it in. I know that the service director will be going over that in his report, but we had about 600 scheduled pickups, and there was maybe a couple hundred more than that on there. So just a little reminder for that. And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Board of Zoning Appeals, Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Zoning, we met May 7th, Monday, May 7th. There was one item on the agenda, and it was a request, a variance to install a new billboard at 4985 West 150th Street, Rock and Roll City, Harley-Davidson, located in the U7C zone within 1,500 feet of an existing billboards. Committee, we unanimously approved it. Just a little nuance on here. This is the last billboard that can be erected in that area. There is no more billboards that will be put up in that area. This is the last one. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to letter E, reports of special committees. Southwest General Health Center trustee, Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee that I chair, the nominating committee, we did meet on May 7th, and I'll be making a presentation from that meeting to the entire board on the 23rd. And once those minutes are approved, I will report back to council on that particular meeting. We also had a meeting today that I serve on the CEO Oversight Committee, and that just concluded about a half hour before this meeting. Those minutes have not been approved yet, so as soon as those minutes are approved, I will report back what went on in that meeting from today. And my next meeting that I'll be representing the city at will be on the 23rd, and I'll have a complete report after that meeting for council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Berea Board of Education Committee, Mrs. McDonald is at an appointment this evening. She will not be here. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple things. There was a school board meeting last night, and the board gave updates on the facilities and pertaining to Brook Park, the elementary school project. The bids are open, and contractors are bidding, and I think they said they should have some of the awards by the June 4th board meeting. And then also tomorrow is the orientation for the incoming 5th graders. Tomorrow at 7:30 at the junior high school. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to letter F, reports of boards and commissions. We have none this evening. G, introduction of resolutions of commendation. We have none. H, reports and communications from the mayor. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the weather's breaking, things are getting a little nicer out there. And to Councilman Orcutt's point, We do have the bulk pickups the first Monday, but you have to call and get them scheduled. What we had were a lot of Me Too's. In other words, we had people call in, but we probably had that number plus actually put stuff out. They saw their neighbor putting it out, so they put it out. So what we're saying is it took a little while to pick it up, an extra day. If you want a bulk pickup, you've got to call the service center and arrange it. The other thing, the rec center project is moving along. I'll let the Recreation Director, Mark Elliott, expound on that, but in a few weeks here, well, we'll be moving our City Hall into the Recreation Center, and probably in July or August, Council will move in there as well. Later on in the week, I will be meeting with Ford Land once again. I'm very assertive on this, and hopefully I'll have some good news. But again, I am meeting with them later in the week. Also, there's some other companies we're looking at, such as Swagelok, to come into this community. So we're very aggressively, and Scott Adams, Economic Development Director, is being aggressive. We want to bring new business in. Right now is the time to do it while the economy's still good, and we're going to continue to do that in an assertive manner. Also, I'd like to give my compliments and condolences to Councilman Burgio. As you know, Councilman Burgio ran for state representative, and it takes a lot of guts to do that. That's a very big district. Cleveland, Brook Park, Middleborough, there's a lot to it. And Carl went out there, he walked every day, and to his credit, the citizens of Brook Park supported him overwhelmingly. So Carl, I'm sorry you lost, but it's good to have you on council. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Questions? Mr. Burgio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, I just appreciate those kind words, and it was nice to hear that. And I did give it a valiant effort, and it's a big area to cover. So I'm glad it's over, but thank you for the kind words.
Thank you, Mr. Burgio. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the mayor. Mayor, have you got any updates on the lateral transfer for me yet? Or I know we haven't talked about it lately.
No, and I haven't talked about it, Rick, but I made a commitment to you that when I do talk about it, I'll have you in those meetings.
Okay, yeah, a couple other questions. I know you mentioned Ford Land, and that's very important to this community. Are they coming here, or are you going there this time? And is there anybody else that could, would you like at the table, or you got that under control?
Well, I like to think I have it under control, Rick, but you don't. Right now, they will be in town. I will be talking with them, and, hopefully it just won't be a conversation. Hopefully we'll have some good news.
Okay. And lastly, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the mayor. Mayor, on the grass cutting program, we're using last year's program. Is that correct?
Yes, we are.
And how many people do we have on it? Do you know offhand, or I can call you tomorrow if you don't have it off the top of your head?
Rick, I don't know off the top of my head. Perhaps the service director knows. I don't, but it was pretty extensive. In fact, we probably had more people than we thought that were going to do it.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, a couple of questions on permits. The construction management trailers that are at Ford right now, what permits has Ford pulled right now for any work?
Right now, you'd probably have to ask the building commissioner that. I don't know if they're really doing any work as to whether they're looking as inspection.
Do they pull permits for inspections, like if there's soil sampling or anything like that, or you're not sure with that?
I'll be frank with you, Councilman. I'm not sure, but I'll find out.
Okay, perfect. I'll just check, because the other question I had was about the Howard Johnson, to see if they had any current permits, and I know sometimes if they pull one, if there's a little work going on, it can stay live, I guess. So I'll save that for the building commissioner. And then the last thing is, with Swagelok, that's a great company. I know a lot about them. They've done a lot of work for the government for many years, and statistically, they have never laid anybody off, and best of luck with them there.
Thank you, Councilman. You're right. They are a great company, and right now, we're not in the mix at all. They were looking at some far southwest suburbs, and we're going to put Brook Park in the mix. We've got a lot to offer.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, just a few quick real things. I agree with Councilman Orcutt and yourself about that bulk pickup. coming from the service garage. And it's a great system. I believe it's a great system we have where they could drop it off from 7 to 7 during the week, and I believe it's 7:30 to 12 on the weekend. And I know it's hard for the seniors, but that's the problem. One person sees one do it, and then so somebody just, throws it out right behind. Sooner or later, we're gonna have to go by the address. And the ones that have called in by that Friday. The one issue I'm having, and I know the building department is swamped, I know they were out the week before when the weather broke, and they did give, they were on top of things, just leave it that. But the one area I'm having a little issue with is over at Glenway, because it just seems like on a whim, people are just, throwing out a lounge chair or a recliner or a bed on a whim. And I know our building commissioner has let them know numerous times about, that. So if there's any way we could get their management a letter, and I remember years ago, I think we picked it up on Monday. They picked it up on Thursday. And just right now, it just seems like every time that you drive down there, there's something out. So if there's any way we could get to them and let them know that, we're trying to make Brook Park beautiful. And so that's it. And I guess the other thing is, the potholes, obviously, you're hearing that. The grass is growing, as probably some of it grew as this meeting's been going. And the speeding, I gotta admit, I've seen the police out. I've seen them, kind of hiding in certain areas within the residential areas, which is a good thing to see. So I just wanted to compliment you on them things there. So I know we're trying. I know we're kind of going fire to fire. There's a lot going on. So, but I appreciate everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Excuse me, Chairman. And in response to your question about putting something out, like a lounge chair or something like that, it's the same thing as putting out your garbage cans. If you get cited, you're going to pay the fine. You can't have that stuff out there for a week sitting on your tree lawn, and we're going to enforce it. So again, you put your garbage cans out 2 or 3 days earlier and get cited. You put your couch out there 2 or 3 days early, you're going to get cited as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we'll move on to letter I. Reports and communications from departments, commissions, and other public officials. We'll start with Finance Director, Mr. Single.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report tonight other than to answer Mr. Salvatore's question earlier to the mayor. There were approximately 290 seniors that applied for the grass cutting. The cost for the city was a little bit less than $115,000. So the cost and activity was up roughly about 25%, a little bit more than 25% over last year. So I think looking at the snow program, if we see increased numbers in the snow program over last year, we're probably going to have to move some monies possibly into the Economic Development Fund, because we only, as you know, appropriated $200,000 for senior programs, and again, almost $115,000 is going to be spent on the grass cutting. So it's a good thing that the seniors are utilizing the program, like about $25,000 more than what was paid last year. That concludes my report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Single. Rec Director, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to share some construction updates with everyone. The community room, the vestibule doors you will see are there, and most all the concrete has been laid on that walkway. They are working on the wood floor, replacing the bad area that is in the rear of the room. They should have all that wood completed tomorrow, and next week they will begin sanding that, and it is shaping up very well. It looks very good. They're also continue to replace all the lighting with LED lighting. The community room kitchen also, we have removed all of that equipment. We are now painting and proceeding with that. We also are beginning to retile areas where the snack bar had been. There are, just going back into the other parts of the building now, the whirlpool continues to be under repair. They've been there the last couple of days replacing all of the parts, the jets and seals and lines. Again, those are lifted out of the ground. We had lifted those out of the ground in both of them, and all those repairs will be done. So we anticipate that being done here next week sometime. And so the locker rooms, all that is shaping up. I believe the mayor just said here in the next couple weeks, I believe most of those areas will be ready to go and ready to be opened. The other thing that we are spending a lot of time on is preparing for home days. All the vendor applications had been out. Entertainment contracts have been finalized. We met last week with our committee, which included the service department, the service director, the police chief, fire chief, and other personnel there, the mayor, and most of my staff. So we are walking the grounds and making sure we've gotten some input from some folks. So we'll make some minor changes. It will still be out in the parking lot at the recreation department. But that, again, is coming along very well. Fireworks will be able to be shot off over at Ford Middle School, or the school property at least. As soon as the schools are out, they're going to start removing asbestos and that, but they did say they would provide an area behind the school for us to continue to do that. The school will no longer be open, so the pageant will be moved over into the recreation center, and we'll do it at our facility. We also have some reconditioning happening over in the Kennedy Park with the bocce courts. They are behind because of the weather, as so many outside projects are a little behind because of the bad weather. And I want to congratulate, again, the Best of Brook Park Committee and that event that night, and particularly our honoree, all the honorees, but particularly Larry Hansen, who was the recreation honoree, who was just really a great guy, and we appreciate being part of that tonight. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. We'll move on to the Law Director, Ms. Sorvath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've provided council with a list of our active civil litigation cases. There are 4 cases. I guess the easiest thing to say is that 2 of them are kind of on their way out, and 2 of them are sort of gearing up. I don't know if anyone wants to entertain any questions, but I will say I'm happy that we only have 4. I think that's good. Seems to me in the past the average is about 7 or 8. Part of that I would attribute to the fact that the service department for the last year or so has been very careful and seems to have avoided any accidents that would cause any litigation for the city. And for that reason, they should be commended. And other than that, I have no further report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Law Director. Moving on to the Service Director, Mr. Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Council. Weather, although it's breaking, it seems to be broken. It affects my grass cutting. You know, I got one piece of concrete walk to finish at the rec, ball field prep, water park painting and prep for opening the water park. All this stuff, it needs dry weather before and after. But we're ready to do that when we can. Yesterday was bulk Monday. Kind of stretched into bulk Tuesday. Just a few numbers. April of this year, we picked up 54 tons of bulk material. Yesterday and today, we picked up 85 tons. That is the biggest amount we've picked up since the program has been in effect. 68 tons in 16, 71 tons, and then this is the holiday week, which typically would be a spring cleaning week, I guess, so the higher amounts should be this month. And then 17 of this month was 71 tons, and then, of course, yesterday and today, 85. Calling in, as it's been said, allots me to make a schedule. We put out 6 trucks, 13 guys on rubbish yesterday. Could have had a couple more, but because of the weather, I had 2 sewer crews running. We did 14 sewer calls. It takes its toll, but we got it done. We've been doing our tree cutting, stumping per our list, and they will be back at it. My Vector was in for service for a week. We picked it up today, and it was immediately out, so it's earning its money. The sweeper's been out every day except for 2 since we last met. Plow damage list is fairly complete. We've done some demo at the rec. Yard waste dump off is going very well. Since the program started the first week in April, I believe, April 6th or 7th, we've filled 13 40-yard dumpsters, and it's being utilized very well. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Garner. Mr. Piatek seems to have stepped away and ran out the door. So I'll go to council. Any questions? Mr. Salvatore.
I think Ed went to work on that roads program.
I'm sorry.
I think he left to go work on that roads program.
Early jump.
I just one quick question to the chair, to the law director. Madam Law Director, I know last year we had some dialogue and some conversation about adding a part-time employee to your staff, but I didn't see that anywhere in your request this year. Are you staffed accordingly, or do you still think you need somebody? And if you do, what cost would be attached to that?
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore, certainly that was looked at and considered. It didn't make it into the budget this year. It may be necessary as time goes on, mainly because we'll need someone to help us deal with some of the development issues that arise from what I see and what appears to be developing is we may need additional counsel to help us in that area, and then also to pick up some of the additional work that seems to have increased throughout the past 2 years, not only with council, but in other areas. If I were able to add someone, I would have basically 2 considerations. First would be another attorney who maybe would have experience in the development area and perhaps experience with regard to grants, which would be very helpful. I would be looking at that being a part-time position somewhere between 25 and 35,000. The other consideration, of course, is I have an excellent administrative assistant. She's worth her weight in gold. But at some point in time, she's going to have to train someone else because she will be looking at some point at retiring, which she certainly deserves. So those would be the 2 considerations that I would have. Both of those positions would be part-time, and one would be an attorney, and the other would be someone who would have legal background and administrative background, and who would be able to basically learn the job that Kate currently does for the time when she will retire. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the Finance Director. Greg, do we know what we spent on senior snow plowing last year?
I looked at it, through the chair to Councilman Stum, I looked at it today, it was roughly 90 to 95,000, I believe. Memory serves me correct. And the grass cutting was about 85 to 90 last year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Mayor.
Council, the engineer, Mr. Piatek, his son was graduating. I told him he didn't have to come to the meeting, however, he thought you would have questions on the roads program at the caucus, so he came on his own assistance. But I told him as soon as we were done with the caucus, he would be properly excused. So again, he's got a child graduating, and that's where he went.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Mancini?
Mayor, you should have told us early, because I would have told him, don't even come. I think that's a lot more important. We could have handled that a little later, but that was good of you to do that, and I respect that he came. First, Randy, Service Director. Randy, is that standard procedure, 6 trucks, 13 guys on that bulk Monday? I know it's hard for you with the short number of guys, and now you got vacations coming and grass growing right now, like I said, and everything else going, sewer calls down there. I could go on and on, hot patch crew. Is that the standard on this bulk Monday?
To To Councilman Mancini, this is my third one since I've been back. The first one we did with 3 trucks in March. The next one we did with 4 trucks, although it ran over a little bit as well. So I put all the trucks out now. 6 trucks, that puts 2 trucks out on the road that when they leave the yard, I don't know if they're coming back. It's pretty scary. They don't load like they used to. So they're not the most efficient vehicles in the fleet for sure. But, you know, we made the effort to get out there. There again, May typically would be your holiday. The first 3-day weekend would be a cleanup from spring going into summer. So I hope that it tapers off. We've talked about how to reevaluate this. Like I said, April was 54 tons. This was this was practically double. So like I said, I'm hoping that it'll taper down. Otherwise, we'll reevaluate how we do it.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I appreciate the answer. Mark and the mayor just walked out. I want to tell you thank you with that football team on a proclamation on Saturday. I think, they won a championship. They beat a team that crushed them during the season, and they come in, they beat them in a championship, and it was, proclamation long in waiting. So I appreciate, you and the mayor getting to that. I know times were a little tough during the time when that was going on. So I just want to say thanks. I know I was there Saturday, and you did a great job, and it was really appreciated. I could see it from the players and the parents. They got their recognition, so thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Carol, I want to thank you for all the help on my ordinances, resolutions. And Greg, I know it's tough when you give us probably the answers and the numbers we don't want to hear, but I appreciate that. I do, because I learn a lot from you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Anyone else? Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just through the chair to Finance Director Single. Were you able to get that answer from the auditor yet?
Through the chair, Councilman Salvatore. Not yet. As soon as I do, I will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the rec director. Mark, is there anything we can expect from home days this year that would be different, or anything that we could look forward to? For first part. Second part is the last couple of years, I've noticed the absence of some of the community groups like the firefighters and the VFW and the Rangerettes. I was wondering if there would be a possibility of them returning this year. If you can answer that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Dunk tank with all councilmen that have to sit in there. No. We have, Councilman, we have focused on encouraging more community groups to participate. So everything has gone out to them. We're just waiting on responses back. And there are some folks who haven't participated in the past who have already contacted us who are participating. And so there are just some people who hadn't been there that should be back and returning. There was some, one of the things that we were asked to try to correct is, I guess when the entertainment would come in, the way they were coming in, and they had to stop traffic or move people. So we're going to try to resolve that problem and make it a little bit safer. But so you should see more community involvement, particularly. Okay.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to letter J, other communications and petitions and verbal approval, introduction of new legislation. We currently don't have anything.
Nope.
Letter K, miscellaneous business appointments confirmations. We do not have anything there. We'll move to letter L, remarks from the audience on any subject matter. If you'd like to come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record.
Smile. Elizabeth Sayers, 2306 Cedar Point Road, Brook Park, Ohio, 44142. This is pertaining to the 2 garden groups and also some other issues. The first thing I want to know is, I asked before spring hit Okay, all the perennials are growing and everything, so I did not destroy city property. Let's get that clear. I was concerned over the lights on that gazebo, which look ridiculous. You took some of them off. The ones on top are still getting busted. I have a mark on my back end from sitting on the glass, okay? I also cut up a little parts of my fingers because of the glass and the ground and everything from these bulbs. I asked the mayor if he would remove those lights because the gazebo looks nice with just one light on, okay? Kids are still breaking those bulbs. I ran into the service department doing the bulbs. They were replacing them. And they do whatever the mayor tells them, being very smart with me. And I says, good. But what I'd like to know, you're gonna keep those bulbs there, let them break, and I'd like to know, if we get cut up there, kids, me, whoever's there helping, putting the flowers around, is the city gonna cover their injuries? Is the insurance of the city gonna cover the residents that are basically working on city property? Okay? And also, when you look underneath, when you walk into the gazebo and you look up, anybody that has any electrical experience will tell you, those are indoor extension cords. They do not belong there. They're hanging all over the place. It's a mess underneath there, okay? I have asked for more than a year, maybe 2, if that was ever gonna get straightened out. You wanna keep those bulbs there? Kids get cut up, I get cut up one more time. I'd like to know if the insurance, the city of Brook Park's gonna cover my hospital bill, because it's not funny getting cut where you can't sit anymore, because it hurts. And I thought that was pretty, one's excuse after the other. Okay, that wasn't that hard to do. It wouldn't take long to take those lights off and straighten that up. But we sure had to jump for the garden clubs. Okay, now, but I can't comprehend. Okay, yeah, the city can do whatever they want with their $5,000 or whatever it is. The mayor can do whatever he wants. I really don't give a rat's tail. But for a mayor just to put his whole ordeal into this garden and beautification thing for one group, because the one person controls both groups, the beautification and the garden club, okay? I can see helping them once, but what I can't comprehend is why the city workers have to do it all for them. These groups are taking in money, and why are you lowering this? Taking in money and asking for volunteers, plus getting the city to do their work. Okay? Now on Snow Road, down by 130th, they put bricks there, and they're not, I don't see any city workers keeping the weeds out of those bricks to make it look nice. But towards 71, we got 14 new pots. Okay? And I'm told the city's gonna do everything. City has done everything so far, except paint them. But I'm supposed to be part of this group. Oh, help me. I'm supposed to be part of this group. Is the city gonna cover me if I go and start planting in those pots? If a car comes up and hits me, debris comes up from the road and hits me, that is a very dangerous intersection, okay? Are we gonna have police cars there so nobody gets hurt? Now, when I come down that hill, I pity anybody if I lost my brakes, because I would go right in the middle to make sure my car stopped, okay? People are sitting there playing with little flowers, they're gonna get hit. So now comes to where you're gonna water these plants. Are we gonna have the fire station come, the big old truck come and water all those pots? There's 14 of them, and they're huge. And then are we gonna have the city workers you're taking the city workers off the street, off of what they're supposed to be doing, and helping with the groups that have volunteers, and they have money to do it themselves, okay? The gazebo, okay, I asked for one little thing, and that's the safety of the people planting flowers and hanging around the gazebo, Just like last night, every 15 minutes, a police officer's going by because we're sitting there at night, 2 adults. And of course, we were watched by other people. Okay? I'd like to know why it is that when you have groups here, you got to have the city do it for you. And then one person borrows money from one group that she belongs to, and then she has another group. Okay? And then she can control the city about, I need the city to do this, 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 and this, and this, and this for me. Well, I thought you had all these volunteers and all this, okay? That's what I can't understand. Why is the city doing all of it when it's supposed to be the groups doing it? And why is the city paying for everything when they're getting money from fundraisers and borrowing from people and people are donating? But the city has to give it all to them. You know, it doesn't look right. And you cannot be friends with everybody and make everybody happy. Okay? Because it looks awfully odd. And my neighborhood on the west side, you can talk to anybody, it looks kind of odd how everybody's wrapped up in these, well, one person's wrapped up in these 2 groups. The mayor is. Okay? And I can't comprehend this, okay? Let's use the mayor. See what we can have the city do for us. See what we can get the money from the mayor. I don't see you spreading this out to anybody else here in the city, other residents. I don't hear those remarks from anybody. I'm not asking anything because I don't want to be blown up in my face that, oh, well, you're getting all this help and you're doing this, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? We're not going to be your friends because you're not working with us. I've heard every kind of remark imaginable. That's why I said I want to do the gazebo by myself so there wouldn't be any issues, no hen fighting or anything else. And I don't want to ask for anything because I watched what happened. 2 little groups have control. I need the city. I need the city workers. I need this, I need that. A group is supposed to work together and not take away from the city that is short on help. I didn't hear Randy say anything about helping down by Snow Road and doing all that and putting the gravel in of 14 huge containers and all that. Where are you getting the water? Where are you getting the manpower? Oh, let's go ask the city. I take a little gadget, bring my own little hose, and go to City Hall and water the flowers because I finally found a key for it. And I do it myself and not ask anybody for any money, don't ask for anybody for any help, except come and join me and bring a Pepsi. But these other 2 groups are allowed to just control, hey, do for me, city. But I'd like to know if the fire trucks are going to go down there and water the flowers, because that's an awful lot of water those plants are going to have, and a lot of care. The other trees died because everybody neglected it. Down by 130th, where the bricks are laid, instead of putting plants there and everything. That's all the weeds coming up on everything else. Did anybody else volunteer to go down there and pull the weeds? Make it look nice? You got to be kidding me. Who wants to get hit by a car? You never know. But I'd like to know, is the city going to make sure, with their insurance, if anything happens, when a resident's working on city property, if they're going to be covered? Because if that's the case, I have a bill from my rear end for the glass that I got cut. And then, one more thing. Ripple Road Fire Station. I'm a woman, and I could figure this one out. Why in the heck would you put 3 big pots next to fire doors where the ambulance is sitting and where the fire truck is? Okay? You got 3 new pots there. I went over there and I said, okay, I'm not that dumb. You plant, okay, you know where the 2 doors are. Okay, they're divided. There's 2 pots on each end, and there's a pot in the middle. You put plants there, okay? Plants grow every which way. Nobody's going to take care of those plants properly and make sure that they're narrow and going straight as a stick. So when you have an ambulance back up, they got mirrors. they gotta be able to see where they're backing up. And the fire trucks. Well, if you got all this bush and garbage, you're gonna start hitting those. Does that make a lot of sense to put pots there? And if they're in a hurry to get back, come on. You know, they hit the sides there and everything, so why go to all that money and all that trouble for 3 pots next to where they're gonna back into? They don't have enough room as it is. They just barely squeak in there. Now, if I was driving, I'd probably wipe everything out, but, you know, these guys know how to drive these vehicles. Okay? So I can't comprehend all this. I can't comprehend 14, planters in the middle of a road. And how are you going to water? How are you going to feed the plants? How are you going to trim them and everything? With the traffic there, the debris there. I can't comprehend this. Where are they going to park? How is anybody going to bring the water? Well, let's let the city do it. Because that's what's going to come down to for safety reasons. And people like me that drive all over the road, you don't know if somebody's going to get hit there. Where are they going to park the cars? How are they going to get the water there? We're going to pay the fire department? Well, the fire department doesn't get paid that much, neither does the police department. So we're going to have the police and the fire department there. Because beautification in the garden wants them there. And then if anybody gets hurt there, what are you going to do? I didn't think it made any sense to me. And at the gazebo, I'm hoping those wires fall down, and I'm hoping some little girl comes over there or a little boy comes over there, and watch what happens when a mother sees their hand cut up because they're helping me plant a flower. And don't tell me there's no glass there, because I can go right over there and give you some light bulbs. I got pictures of it all. So, on that note, if I'm supposed to be part of this garden group and everything, maybe I should call all your city workers off the jobs that they need to do around here and what they have to do around here, and let them have a little time with a Pepsi and an ice cream when they're supposed to be doing something totally different that's more important than playing with flowers. So, and I like to ride the fire I would like to ride the fire truck when you take it over there, the water, all 14 of those. You take your little pot of water, and let me know when you're going. I like to ride in the back of the truck, because that's the only way you're going to be able to do it to keep people safe. And call the police over to make sure that people have a place to cross the street. Does anybody ever think of that? The police don't get paid enough to babysit a bunch of garden little clubs, or the fire department doesn't get paid enough. And I said, watch what happens. Watch. Think about it. Thank you.
Brandy Reynolds, 6060 Middlebrook Boulevard. I've gotten a lot of messages today on Facebook about the live stream. People are complaining that they're hearing some kind of static, and they're thinking that it's coming from the audio here. I just want them to know that it's not the audio here, that it's actually coming up from your dais, because somebody has a cell phone that is getting a text message, a phone call, or something that is too close to the microphone. So that picks up everything. That static that you're hearing, that's because of that. And it's actually coming through much louder through the actual live stream versus in here. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joan Markusik, 13911 Bellbrook. Mr. Mayor, on May 2nd, I called your office to set up a meeting with you. What I would like to know is, once I finally made contact with your assistant director / secretary / whatever else he told me he was, I was asked why I wanted to meet with you. I wonder if that's proper protocol, first off. Then I proceeded to have the question, I may be able to answer your questions, and that way then you don't even have to talk to the mayor, was my next total response. I want to know if that is also proper protocol. Then, when I asked my questions, I was informed that our city does not give tax abatements, and that is why we need the flower pots by 71, because we need to do a design on a dime type of project to get businesses into our city, because we can't afford to give all of these expensive tax abatements like our surrounding cities. So we need to make our city look really, really good for businesses to want to come into our city. Then I was told that the city paid for the flower pots that Liz was talking about. But I was told that that comes out of like fund that you have, that you're allowed to use money as you see fit. So technically, our city owns those flower pots. And then I was very upset to see our service department, instead of doing the pool painting and the grass cutting and weed whacking on the most beautiful sunny day in our city, well, not the most, but one of the most, they were putting rocks around our flower pots that we paid for, that nobody knew about until the council meeting where you told everybody about it. And everybody just kind of looked like, okay. And I guess what I want to know is, does having a meeting with you, is that like not able to happen? Are residents allowed to talk to you, or are we supposed to be talking to other people who work under you or for you or around you or next to you to find out what you're thinking? Because I wasn't even able to talk to you at all. I did make it very clear. I don't know if you got the message or anything, but what I want you to know is this. I had a question about Ford. And my question about Ford was, exactly what is going on? I know that you can't say a lot, but I think I would like you to say, yes, we have a plan. The plan is moving forward. However, if that plan does not follow through, our plan B is this. I was told that you don't tell anybody anything because you don't want to look like a liar. My main concern as a resident is I don't call anybody a liar unless they're lying. And if you tell me you have a plan and it falls through, but you have this other plan that you're working on, you're not a liar. You're still looking out for the residents in our city. So I don't know how you're running your office, and I don't know what your secretary, administrative assistant, is able or not able to do, but I really would have appreciated talking to you personally, because when I'm talking to someone on the phone, I can't see what their face is, and I know the person who you have answering your phone, and I really would have liked to have seen his face, because I'm sure he rolled his eyes quite a few times. And he probably thought I was buying his little line. Not that I didn't think he was telling me some truth, but I feel that as our mayor and the person who is supposed to be moving our city forward, you should be the one our residents talk to. And I don't feel that I should have to run any questions or information through anybody when I want to talk to you. Because if I'm asking to talk to you, that means I want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to this person, or this person. It's kind of like when I want to talk to my councilman. I don't talk to every other person up there and then go to my councilman. I go right to my councilman. Because you have to go to the source. It's kind of like, it's that our city is too busy living in that Facebook kind of world. You're making that like my view of what your whole scheme is in this city. You're not going to tell anybody anything. You're going to wait for them to talk to this person, and this person, and then after somebody comes up to you and says, you know, what's the deal? That's when you're going to say something. And that's not what a leader does. A leader steps out, puts themselves out there, stands up for themselves and the people to which they represent, and you follow through on your plan. And anybody who knows anything knows that everybody's plan does not always work out exactly the way it's supposed to. But if you have a plan B, or you're willing to sit and meet with people to figure out a way out of it, that makes you a stronger leader in the end. And people will respect you and look up to you a little bit more. But right now, the respect I have for you and your administration right now is very, very low, because I can't even get in to talk to you, and I'm hearing things from someone who thinks that they should be able to answer for you. So I really think that you need to maybe reevaluate and sit and maybe do some soul searching so that you can answer the residents and accept responsibility for the position that you're in and stand up for what you believe in. And realize that everybody makes mistakes and not everything goes according to the way that it's written on paper. But it takes a bigger person to say, you know, this didn't really work out the way that I thought, so maybe we should do this and work towards this goal instead. That makes you a stronger leader for our city, and that is why you were elected. And I hope that you will do some reevaluating and step up to the plate and pull through on what you promised us. Thank you.
Open door policy. And what happened to the open door policy?
Ray Peterlin, 5811 Wangler Drive. And what I'd like to talk about tonight is Wangler Drive. The street is around 60 years old. The trees are about 60 years old. We've had nothing but trouble with trees getting into the sewer systems, causing people to do waterproofing, causing people to have their basements flooded. Across the street from me, there was a house, and the man was in a nursing home up in Sandusky. He was in the military, so he was up there. And while he was up there, he had water in the basement, so his daughter hired a waterproofing company. They did the whole outside of the property. She proceeded after he died. She was able to sell the property. They did. Within 6 months or so, the basement flooded again, and they figured, well, it wasn't done right the first time. Well, it was. And they went to the city, and the city told them the lines in the to the street were good. They weren't. But since that was the case, the guy said, what am I going to do? So he hired a different waterproofing company, and they dug up the inside. We're talking about now two $20,000 repairs, all because the lines going to the street were filled with roots, 10 foot long, because I seen them, and the city had to come out and lay new pipes and take the trees down. Now at that time, I asked the supervisor, I said, look at my tree across the street. It's as big, if not bigger, than the one you just took out. Please take that tree out before I have personally problems. Okay, call it in. I did. They told me I'd be on a list. I'd like to know when that tree is going to come out before I too have to waterproof my house and get water again in my basement. If somebody could tell me that, I'd appreciate that. I'd like to know a date when that tree is going to come out. Thank you.
Louis Modick, 14399 Fayette Boulevard, Brook Park, Ohio. I want to bring up something I think was brought up in the March 20th meeting by Mr. Hurst. It was a discussion about some carpeting that wasn't being used and was going to be used in different areas. And the police station was going to be one of those areas. And it was reported after that. I think a couple of the councilmen were even surprised it wasn't put in yet. If it has been put in, great, 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 great. If it hasn't put in, I think the service director said he was waiting for a work order. It being police week, I think it would be great if the city could expedite that and get a work order and get the police station that carpeting put in. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else, we're going to move on to letter M, introduction of ordinances and resolutions under first reading. We have three. First one is resolution number 17-2018, authorizing and directing the placement of a veteran parking space in all municipal parking lots and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilman Mancini and council as a whole. Resolution number 17-2018 has had its first reading. Second one is resolution number 18-2018. This is a resolution authorizing the mayor to participate in the ODOT winter contract 018-19 for rock salt and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella per Council President Vecchio.
Motion to suspend.
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion to suspend is approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini. Yes. Poindexter.
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved. This resolution numbers 18-2018 has been adopted. Item number 3, this will be ordinance number 11,023-2018, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the city of Strongsville to establish a consolidated communication center in the city of Strongsville and declaring an emergency, introduced by Mayor Gamella.
Motion to suspend.
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio. Sorry, start over. Can't hear Mr. Stem over there.
Greg, get it close to the microphone.
Seconded it. So, we're gonna start over on that. We're gonna go Salvatore,
I want to change my mind now. Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini.
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes. I got two.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Suspension has been approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll on adopt. Discussion.
Pardon?
Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Salvatore.
I would just like to say that I think it's in the city's best interest to move forward on this. And I'm sure everybody here tonight feels the same way. It's, you know, the situation that we were in before, obviously it was due to the fact that it was less expensive, but I think this is truly a better fit for our city now. And I'd like to move forward on this evening, as council took it from the caucus to the council, suspended, and I hope it has full support for passage tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Seeing no one else, motion on the floor
To adopt.
To adopt, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Ordinance number 11,023-2018 has been adopted. Moving on to letter N. Second reading of ordinances and resolutions. We have one item. Ordinance number 11,022-2018, amending sections 331.45A and C of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Texting While Driving Prohibited and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilman Mancini, Council as a whole, and Mayor Gamella.
Move to suspend.
Support.
Support.
Motion to suspend, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll on suspension.
Mancini,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Got to go back to those Poindexter. Poindexter section, second to that.
can't hear on this side. Start raising their hands.
It's the right ear.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Suspension has been approved.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Support.
Motion to adopt, properly supported. Discussion on adoption. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll on adoption.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Ordinance number 11,022-2018 has been adopted. Moving to letter O, third reading of ordinances and resolutions. We do not have any. At this time, council, I will entertain a motion to go to executive session.
Mr. Chairman, before we do,
Mayor.
I'd like to say one thing to the viewing audience.
Chairman.
That
Mayor, we'd have to, council has to approve if we're going to respond.
Motion to address the audience, Mr. Chairman.
No, I'm not addressing the audience, Mr. Chairman.
Are we addressing any comments made by audience members, sir?
No, sir.
Then you're free to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I still would like to make a motion to address the audience.
Support.
Motion to address the audience, properly supported. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Floor is yours, council.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Salvatore.
Just a quick comment. I'd like to respond to Brandy's comments about someone using electronic devices up here. I did get a call as well. One was, in fact, I got a call as far away as Florida. I have some friends that grew up here in Brook Park, and they still stay connected to our city through the live stream. And I did talk to him the last couple of weeks. This particular friend of mine, he's been in the hospital, so he was really upset that he couldn't hear, and he brought it to my attention. In fact, I was going to talk to you tonight about it, and I'm glad you brought it forward. Mr. Chairman, if someone up here is using an electronic device, that we have rules against that, and I would hope that we would address that as we go moving forward, because it doesn't make much sense for us to be paying for live streaming if people can't hear it, especially if it's something that's happening right here.
Mr. Salvatore, seeing that you brought that up, rule number 9 clearly states that under conduct of elected and appointed officials at council meetings. So everybody here on the dais, that goes to all officials, everybody sitting here. If you are up here, you have your cell phone, please either turn it off, put it on airplane mode, so that there is no interference.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy, for bringing that forward.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pertaining to meetings with the mayor, if you call, you schedule, you'll get an appointment. I'm quite busy. You will be asked what your topic is, so I can be prepared when you come in. That's the only professional way to handle an office, and that's how I handle it. Also, I'm at a lot of meetings. People see me. The speaker who spoke, I sat right next to her at a beautification meeting a few days ago. We could have spoke then. We could not. Perhaps something came up between now and then. I want to assure the audience, though, that call my office. You'll get an appointment. But we're going to ask you what topic you want to talk about. And it may be down the road a little bit. It might not be tomorrow. But We will get you in. Again, I'm quite busy trying to move the city forward. I'm constantly meeting with people, and that just comes with the job. And now that I can speak on audience participation, the gentleman with the trees, sir, if you give the service director your address after the meeting, we'll look into it for you. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Mr. Stem,
Motion to return to regular business?
Support.
motion on the floor to return to regular order of business properly supported. Discussion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Stem,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Perugino,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Motion is approved. We're back in a regular order of business. So at this time, council, I would accept the motion to go into executive session.
Motion so made.
Support.
Mr. Chairman, question on a motion.
There.
On the executive session, it says sale of property. It should have said purchase and sale of property, just before we go in,
So let's reiterate this, and then you guys, if you, so we can properly support this. So executive session is for sale of, or purchase of, sale and purchase of property.
Do we got to make a motion to amend that?
no.
Okay.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore, Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Perugino,
Yes.
Scott,
Is that a yes, sir?
Yes.
Motion is approved. We will now go into executive session.
Using it.